Guys, I'm building a soundproof room in my dad's basement that will be my girlfriend and I's bedroom when she moves in with me after we're married. We're getting married this summer, so this is very important that I get the room built so that we have a place to sleep at. The soundproofing is so my dad can't hear us arguing, because we argue a lot. That's all we're going to be doing in the bedroom, is arguing or sleeping. Because anything else we would do is not going to happen, because that's only for procreation and only after 5 years of marriage, so it won't be an issue. So this is only for just privacy of conversations. Okay. Drywall. Onto that side. And okay. Okay, so drywall number 1 will just be screwed right into the frame. Drywall number 2 will be green glued. Green glue this one. Now even drywall number 1 has to be make air tight. Alright, so that means caulking all seams or mudding all seams. It's going to be totally airtight. We're going to build a complete replica . Okay, and this one is again going to have okay. Drywall 1 inside room. Drywall 2 inside room. Now these studs are going to be half thickness of standard 4-inch studs. So the framing for the two, so we're going to basically build two walls sandwiched together. And we're going to green glue seam between two stud wall halves. So basically these two will be the same thickness combined as a normal studs of a wall, but they're going to be just cut down the middle and green glued, and they will not be physically attached to each other. I don't even plan to screw them together. They're just going to be smashed together, and they're going to be held by friction to the ceiling and the floor of the room, just by making the height of the drywall slightly greater than the height of the room. So it'll just smash on the ceiling of the room and smash on the floor of the room. Okay, and we're also going to green glue top stud to ceiling. And green glue bottom stud to floor. That'll make it airtight and cause additional damping. Now these walls won't be terribly thick. Each one of these drywall sheets, we're using 4 layers of drywall, will be ½ an inch thick. Now we green glue outer drywall to inner one and make sure seams do not line up. So the way I drew this, where the seams would be lining up like this, we'll just offset it a little bit. So you make sure that the two drywall sheets do not line up together. So you're green gluing the tops, bottoms, and sides of the studs wherever they hit. And you're green gluing the outer layer of drywall to the inner layer of drywall. We're always going to have 2 layers of drywall. It's very important. That builds your mass. Now, you also need add fiberglass insulation, and the fiberglass insulation will dampen sound as well. Drywall doesn't deflect sound. Drywall has mass. 2 half-inch sheets of drywall means we're going to have a total of 2 inches of drywall. The mass of the drywall helps to add dampening because the vibrations have a harder time vibrating a thicker mass, and it does deaden sound more. And I gotta draw arrows here as well. Okay, so you can see drywall's going in both, or insulation's pointing into both directions. And yeah, you should be able to. Alright, so anyways, because we're building a cube inside a cube, each with their own distinct drywall and double thick, each with their own fiberglass insulation, and no mechanical connection between the two cubes. Because we're doing it that way, there will be no way for the sound to travel through screws into the different studs, since there's 2 groups of studs. We will put two sheets drywall outside outer cube. Okay. 2 sheets drywall inside inner cube. That's how it's going to happen. To be able to sleep any hour of the day. So for my own peace and quiet, I need a soundproof room just for me to be able to sleep when everyone else is awake. So it's very important to me to have a soundproof, quiet place so that I can sleep without the need for earplugs. However, if there's a lot of loud stuff going on, even with the soundproof room, sometimes I will wear earplugs, and with the combination of a soundproof room, which isn't perfect, and the earplugs, it's almost perfectly quiet. But if you have a room that's not soundproofed and it's transferring all the noise very loud, and you wear earplugs, you still end up hearing everything. You can hear every word. It's a little quieter with quality earplugs, but you still hear everything. So it's unacceptable. So I will be building a soundproof room, and this is my strategy to do it. Now you'll notice I gain the advantage of double drywall on the inside wall, double drywall on the outside wall, as well as insulation going inside both frames. This is just a cross section of the outer wall and the inner wall. You can see how they're going to be 2 cubes separated. It's a box inside a box. And these 2 cubes will not have any mechanical fasteners. There won't be screws leading from cube 1 into cube 2, because any mechanical connection between the 2 will allow sound to wave through. Now, the fiberglass that goes into the studs helps to dampen noise. It absorbs whatever noise does get through the double thick drywall. The double thick drywall is good because it's harder to vibrate. It's got more mass. That's one of the formulas for quieter, more mass. Next, we're putting thick green glue between the 2 sheets of drywall. That will help dampen. Now we will be screwing the 2 sheets of drywall into the frame for structural reasons, and that applies to the ceiling and to the walls. However, because we're having 2 cubes inside each other, the screws will only be transferring noise from the outer drywall into the second drywall and into the frame. But since this frame will not mechanically fasten to this, that's where it ends. So then, whatever direct vibrations were transferred through conduction, through mechanical fasteners, will not be able to transfer through the next layer, the next cube. So that will protect one cube from transferring all the way to the next cube. So that's really the genius here. Now, you could ask, does the green glue between 2 sheets of drywall actually help anything? Because you're still putting screws between the 2 sheets of drywall, and that will cause conduction of sound between the 2 sheets of drywall and into the studs. Well, the answer to that is it still will help, because all the area that's not being conducted through the screws, like the big open masses between the studs, those will still be vibrating like a drum as sound waves hit it, and by putting the green glue between that, that can help to dampen that a little bit. So it will still reduce sound waves from vibrating the drywall, which then creates a powerful force to send them through the drywall. It will reduce the vibrations to some extent. So that's good. It will cause a dampening effect, meaning it will cause the vibrations to be less because it will absorb some of it because of the spongy elasticity of the green glue. Will also be, as I said, if the outer frame and inner frame are close enough to touch, which they very well could be, we will definitely be putting a layer of green glue along all inner surfaces of the two before we smash the 2 frames together. In other words, before we slide the inner box inside of the outer box, we will coat the outer box and inner box in green glue before we make that smashing together. That way, wood won't touch wood, which would cause conduction of sound. The idea is to isolate the vibrations of box 1 and box 2 to separate them. Now you can do that through anti-rattle clips, but that's expensive. For a package of 50 of them, it's $230, whereas it's much cheaper just to use the free 2x4s that I got from my grandpa's house and build a second room inside the room. Because you're already going to need, even with the dampening clips, you're still going to need double walls anyways. So you might as well just build completely separate, mechanically distinct cubes inside one another that both structurally support themselves through the 4 walls. They both structurally support their own ceilings. So you don't have to join the ceilings of each other with screws or anything. They're not going to be hung ceilings. The ceilings will be structurally supported by the walls. And as it turns out, because I'm building this entire room inside of my living room in the basement, we're going to have additional layer of soundproofing because this is all going to go inside of the basement ceiling. So I'm actually going to have 3 ceilings with 2 layers of drywall on the outside of the outer box, 2 layers of drywall on the inside of the inner box, so that's 4 layers of drywall, each ½ inch thick, plus a layer of drywall on the original ceiling, plus the flooring on the upstairs, plus carpeting. So the transmission of sound upward will be basically eliminated. And it's going to be great. The room's going to be so quiet. We could literally just blast music and you wouldn't even hear it. And we pretty much will be blasting music because we both like watching movies, Netflix and chill, and we'll be able to get our big screen TV in there and get surround sound and listen as loud as we want, and it won't wake up my dad who goes to bed at like 5 p.m. So that's very important. So, I mean, it's going to... Basically, soundproofing improves the quality of life of everyone in the house. you can have more privacy in your conversations. You can have more privacy. You won't disturb people if you listen to loud music or watch movies with surround sound. They won't disturb you if they're up earlier than you are, walking around, vacuuming, whatever it is. They won't wake you up. It improves the quality of life of everyone. Just by soundproofing one room, you're actually protecting the people who aren't in a soundproof environment, because you're not transmitting sound to them that they wouldn't want to hear, and they're not transmitting sound to you that you wouldn't want to hear. So you're actually serving the entire household by doing this. You need to mud all the seams, and you need to either caulk or mud even the top and bottom seams into the floor and ceiling, because the key to this is also making everything airtight. So you got to picture you're filling the room with water and no water would get out, because that's the #1 way to defeat your soundproofing. Beside, like, you might be helping eliminate vibrations, but if you have any air gaps, that's going to defeat everything, because those air gaps will carry all the sound easily, depending on how big they are, of course, but you just don't want any air gaps. You got to make the room watertight and well insulated. And you just got to make sure to remember to add the drywall to the outside of the outer box first. So I would probably build the outer box walls and drywall them while they're laying on the ground, and then I'll lift them and raise them up to the ceiling. So I'll build the walls first, because the outside of the outer box wall will be pressed against the outside of the existing house's structure. And so if you don't even want it touching, you're going to want to put like a layer of insulation and have it pressed against that to make sure they're not touching. So you'll put, so it would be like this. For the outer box, you're going to have the wood and you're going to have the 2 layers of drywall, and then you're going to have a layer of insulation. Okay. You got your 2 layers of drywall. So it's frame, layered, let's see, frame, drywall #1, drywall #2, insulation. And this is outer wall. Okay, so the outer wall, outward facing into the room, is going to have frame, drywall, drywall, insulation. And that's going to be pressed against the existing structure. So that's going to be pressed against the ceiling and all 4 walls of the basement. And what that's going to do is it's going to prevent conduction from the frame and the 2 drywalls into the existing structure of the house. The insulation will provide a barrier against this drywall touching anything. Plus, we don't want to use caulk on the outside of drywall #2, which would be a fine way, because we're going to tear down this whole soundproof room when we move out. And the reason we're going to tear it down is because my dad doesn't want it to be there when we leave. So we don't want any screws entering the existing structure of the house. We don't want any caulk. We don't want anything touching it. So just insulation is going to be pressed onto that. And then we're just going to shove tight the outside box onto the existing structure. We want to shove it as tight as we can in order to maximize the total amount of space. So that will be the same for the outer walls ×4 and for the ceiling. It's going to all be done that way. And For the electrical, it's just going to go underneath everything and then up and then over, and that will be the light. Okay, so underneath everything, up and over, and that'll be the light bulb. And then it'll be going from this way underneath everything, up and over, and we'll have the wall outlet. Now it's going to go underneath everything because we don't want the cord leaving a hole going through both boxes. So going underneath everything will prevent a structural weakness where sound can travel through both walls. It'd have to go under the walls. We can seal that off and put weight on it. The electrical boxes will have clay wrapped around the insides of them, which will prevent them from becoming weaknesses that sound can pass through easily. The clay wrapping around the insides of the electrical boxes will be like 1/2 inch thick. And you can use any type of clay. I'm probably going to use modeling clay, plasticine modeling clay, oil-based.